The story begins with a teacup, small, simple, made of clay. It was the kind of cup typically offered to guests during meetings, conveying respect in silence. But this time, that cup nearly carried death with it. President Ibrahim Traoré was attending a private meeting at a military base outside Ouagadougou. Just a peaceful gathering with senior officers and advisors to discuss logistics for the campaign in the east. How can one unjust gunshot spark a movement that no one can silence? Follow along as we explore the story that changed a country. Before we dive in, let us know where in the world you're watching from. Leave your city or country in the comments below. We'd love to hear from you. The atmosphere was calm, natural, nothing unusual. They sat in a circle under an old mango tree. Hot teacups, fragrant with cinnamon, were passed around by a soldier in civilian clothes. Traoré accepted the teacup as usual, with a slight smile. He nodded in thanks, then paused. He didn't drink, not yet. His eyes glanced over the server, a new face, young, visibly tense. He held the cup with both hands, gently as if holding crystal. Across the circle, the female colonel, a seasoned officer known for her sharp mind and cold gaze, was the first to sip her tea, unusually hasty. She looked at the president, smiling. "Please, sir, the tea is freshly brewed." But Traoré remained still, only smiling back. Deliberately, he placed the teacup on the small wooden table beside him. The atmosphere shifted slightly, too subtle for ordinary people to notice, but Captain Zongo, who always sat silently behind, immediately understood the signal. Traoré had been trained among wolves. He knew the scent of betrayal. 2 hours earlier, at the presidential palace, he had received an anonymous letter with just one line. "Be careful with your tea. Today, they will test your trust." No name, no trace, just a warning. He didn't ignore it. He kept to his schedule, came to the base, sat among those he thought he knew, waiting for someone to reveal themselves. And now, with that teacup still untouched on the table, he knew something very dangerous was lurking. Traoré looked directly at the female colonel and asked, "Do you know, sometimes I wonder, how many things can be hidden inside a small cup like this?" The colonel forced a smile. "That's the beauty of tea, sir." "Or the danger," Traoré replied, then slowly stood up. The atmosphere in the meeting instantly changed. President Traoré stood tall, hands behind his back, eyes not leaving the colonel. Everyone fell silent. The space thickened. Even birds around them went quiet, as if waiting for what would come. Traoré didn't raise his voice or impose power, just asked softly, sharp as a knife, "Colonel, do you really trust the person who poured this tea?" The colonel blinked, lips pressed tight. "Of course, Mr. President." "Good," Traoré said, then turned to an aide, pointing to the untouched cup. "Then, please drink it for me." The aide nervously reached for the teacup. The colonel's eyes widened. "No, wait," she quickly said. "We shouldn't mix cups. Hygiene issues." Traoré raised his hand to interrupt. "Hygiene, Colonel, or poison?" Once again, the circle of officers fell into silence. You could hear the wind rustling through the leaves. The colonel tried to regain composure. "Mr. President, I assure you no one would dare do such a thing right now, right here." But Traoré had already left the table, pulled out a small radio, and coldly ordered, "Bring him in." Seconds later, 2 soldiers escorted the young tea server, hands tied behind his back, face panicked. A guard placed a small bag on the table. Inside was a tiny plastic bottle carefully hidden in the server's sock, with a faded label reading VXT42, a slow-acting nerve poison, enough to kill within minutes, colorless, odorless, tasteless, now sitting in the teacup meant for the lioness of Burkina Faso. The president turned to the officers. "I have commanded soldiers into battle," he said calmly, "sent brothers to the battlefield, but betrayal from within this house hurts more than any enemy." He looked at the colonel again. "You invited me here, you arranged the tea and told me to drink first." The colonel stood up, face pale. "This is madness." But Captain Zongo had already approached, quickly taking control of the situation. Traoré moved closer, looking straight into her eyes. "Did you think I wouldn't notice, Colonel? Do you think I've survived until today by drinking every cup of tea brought to me?" The Colonel remained silent. Traoré leaned in, whispering, "People like you don't want power to serve, but to trade." Then he declared loudly, "Arrest her! No publicity, no show. We need silence." As the Colonel was led away, the remaining officers were stunned. The poison had failed, but the message was clear. The lioness was tested, and she never blinked. At the presidential palace, the traitor was locked in a cold underground room, where walls only listen but never speak back. The female colonel refused to talk, repeatedly denied everything, said she was innocent, didn't know the tea server, knew nothing about the poison, that she had been framed. But Ibrahim Traoré didn't need arguments. He believed in evidence, silent, sharp, undeniable. Captain Zongo entered the interrogation room, carrying a small black notebook found in the tea server's backpack. Zongo opened it, pointing to each line. "This is your handwriting. We verified it." The notebook contained code names, meeting dates, unusual payments, and a large transaction just days before the poisoning attempt. But one name appeared multiple times: Le Chacal, the jackal. Traoré observed from behind a one-way mirror, turning to his aide. "This name, have we heard it before?" The aide nodded. "Yes, sir. It appeared in an intercepted call 3 months ago related to foreign intelligence." Traoré's expression darkened. This wasn't just about the colonel. This wasn't a lone wolf. There was a more powerful hand behind it. That evening, Traoré called an emergency meeting with his most trusted people. Zongo, 2 counterintelligence officers, and a cybersecurity expert who had decoded documents in the previous coup. They gathered in the command basement. Zongo placed the notebook on the table. "The name Le Chacal, he's the director. The server was just a tool. The colonel was the intermediary." Traoré nodded. "We need to find the source." The network expert worked urgently, tracing phone history, number traces, satellite signals. Most had been wiped clean, but one message stood out. A burner phone, used only once. Content: "Put it in the teacup tomorrow, she won't notice." Sent from a location less than 2 kilometers from the French consulate in Ouagadougou. Zongo looked up. "He's still around here." Traoré crossed his arms. "If he's still in this city, we're not hunting ghosts. We're hunting people." The hunt began. The game had changed. No longer tracking a corrupt colonel, but the real mastermind, Le Chacal, the phantom who gives orders then disappears without a trace. But Ibrahim Traoré wasn't waiting for more plots. This time, he would strike first. The cyber expert traced the final signal of the burner phone to a luxury apartment in Ouaga 2000, a neighborhood for diplomats, foreign businessmen, international organization staff. The building had no cameras in corridors, too convenient for hiding. "Whoever this jackal is, he has protection. He knows how to hide," Zongo said. Traoré leaned close to the table. "We won't search like soldiers. We'll smoke him out like thieves." He approved a top-secret plan. Operation Eyeglasses. No uniforms, no sirens, no announcements, just darkness stalking darkness. They positioned people around the building disguised as cleaners, fruit sellers, delivery people. A soldier posing as a repairman secretly placed small cameras in hallway corners and ventilation gaps. On the 3rd day they spotted the target. A tall woman, white skin, sharp face, dark glasses, neat hair, always wearing a hat. Not on any embassy staff list, but with a key to room 3B, matching the phone signal location. She was very cautious, never leaving home at the same time, never using the same car twice. But she made a mistake. She ordered food. Traoré smiled at the news. "Good. Let us deliver it ourselves." That night, Zongo disguised himself as a food delivery person. One hand carrying a bag, the other hiding a tiny listening device. When the door opened, The woman stared at him intently, coldly. She said nothing, just paid cash, took the food, and closed the door. But that was enough. The device had recorded everything: voice, footsteps, even the wolf's breath. Back at command, the voice was run through recognition software. The result appeared: Alexandra Morel, a French intelligence officer who had operated in West Africa. Officially retired, but in secret circles, she was known by the codename Le Chacal, the Jackal. She was the one who ordered the assassination of President Traoré with poisoned tea. But capturing her wouldn't be easy. With no diplomatic badge, arresting her in public risked international condemnation, while raiding would allow her to disappear in an instant. Escape routes would certainly be prepared. Traoré pondered for a long time, then said, "Let's give her what she wants." Zongo raised an eyebrow. "Sir? I'll organize a private dinner, inviting only truly important people. We'll bait her." Oh, Zongo nodded. "And if she comes?" Traoré's eyes were cold. "We'll put an end to it." The trap was set. President Traoré announced a discreet dinner at the presidential mansion. Just a few trusted guests. No press, no public list. News leaked just enough for someone to hear. Zongo and his team constantly monitored apartment 3B. Morel wasn't seen leaving, but her phone activated, a new burner SIM, sending messages across the city. This meant another assassination plot was about to unfold. But this time, Traoré wasn't the target. He was the bait. In the presidential kitchen, the entire chef team had been replaced with counterintelligence officers in chef uniforms. Every utensil, every dish, every teacup was checked, marked. Microphones hidden under tables, in flower vases, even in salt shakers. Nothing escaped control. At exactly 7:30 p.m., the dinner began. 4 guests sat around the table, all loyal, silent, knowing their mission. Traoré sat at the head of the table, calm, not wearing a uniform but dressed in simple traditional clothes. He didn't want to make himself a target. Zongo was in the monitoring room. "All cameras clear. No movement detected from room 3B, he whispered through the microphone. No signs of intrusion. But then a waiter appeared, carrying a drink tray. Not one of theirs. Zongo froze. "Who is that?" "Not one of ours." The camera zoomed in. This person moved differently, face calm but right hand slightly trembling. She put the tray down, then stepped back. Traoré raised his glass but didn't drink, looking directly at the woman. "Would you like to drink with the president?" The woman hesitated. Traoré slowly stood up. "You've been running too long, Alexandra, but you made one mistake." The room moved in an instant. Chairs shifted. Security rushed in. The woman quickly pulled a small needle from her sleeve, something sharp. But Zongo was already behind her. In seconds, she was restrained. "No gun?" Traoré approached. "Poison again? You thought the old trick would work twice?" Morel, Le Chacal, looked up, face full of anger. "You've made enemies with those you cannot fight," she hissed. Traoré leaned down. "I don't fight them," he replied. "I will outlive them." He stood up, ordering, "No press, no announcements. Tonight, transfer her to the deepest cell. This is not a show but a message." Throughout the city, everything remained as calm as usual. But a major event had just occurred. A second assassination attempt had failed, the mastermind captured. Traoré knew things wouldn't end there. This wasn't just about poison or politics, but a warning. Someone was ready to kill for power. But now they knew. Traoré would never drink anything without thorough inspection. The silence after the storm echoes louder than the storm itself. Nothing was announced. No photos leaked. Le Chacal, the phantom behind the poisoning, disappeared into darkness that the world couldn't trace. But President Traoré understood the danger wasn't over. The next morning he sat alone in his office, holding the ceramic teacup from the first incident, now clean, empty, but still heavy with meaning. He thought about the young soldier who carried poison without understanding the consequences. He thought about the female colonel, once a person of integrity, now in chains awaiting judgment. And he thought about the people, millions who placed their complete trust in him, never knowing how many nights he walked the line between life and death. Then came a knock at the door. It was Captain Zongo. "Sir, the military academy is ready for your speech." Traoré nodded. That afternoon, Traoré walked into the courtyard of the Burkina Faso National Military Academy. Hundreds of cadets stood in solemn rows. They had heard rumors, suspected something major had happened, but no one knew the whole truth. Traoré stood at the podium, before the microphone, carrying no notes. He didn't need them. "Many of you may not yet understand the weight of the uniform," he began. "You think it gives you power, but in reality, it gives you responsibility." He held up the teacup. "This cup nearly took my life not because of the tea inside, but because I misplaced my trust." He paused. The cadets held their breath, some with wide eyes, others with clenched fists. "One day, you will protect this country. But protection comes not just from guns, but from honor, from knowing when to speak up, when to refuse despite money or pressure from outside." He looked across the sea of young faces. "I survived not because I'm clever, but because I never forget one truth. A nation is only as strong as the loyalty of its lowest soldier." He turned to Zongo, raising the teacup toward him. "This cup is no longer a symbol of death, but a symbol of survival." He placed it on a stone pedestal next to the Academy flag. "Let it remind you," he said, "that even the smallest object can contain either betrayal or courage. Choose what you carry." The cadets saluted in unison, some with tears in their eyes. That evening, Traoré stood quietly on the presidential palace rooftop, watching the fiery sunset spread across the sky. He understood this wouldn't be the last plot. There would be more jackals, more poisons, but each time they would again find the lion waiting. Not because he craved war, but because he was ready to die standing rather than live on his knees. And so the cup was kept, not in a museum, not in a private home, but in the hands of the next generation, a symbol of vigilance, survival, and of a man who would never submit.